The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Today I'm going to talk about contentment. It might seem a little odd to talk about contentment in this present turbulent world, but actually it might be just what we need. Contentment is not complacency. I'm okay and I don't need to care about anybody else. It's not that. And it's not a passive thing. We need to kind of practice contentment, but without striving to be content. I will be content at all costs. That's not going to work. To practice contentment really is to relinquish craving. This sounds familiar, doesn't it? I want this, it'll make me happy. I don't want that. This is not contentment. We're trying to curb that constant wanting to help us be content. The scripture of the Buddha's last teachings, which he was said to have said to his disciples on his deathbed, his dying, and among many other things he says, O you monks, if you wish to be free from miseries and woes, look into contentment, which is synonymous with knowing what is enough. The teaching of contentment is none other than the location of true wealth, ease, security, and peace. The person who is contented, though he sleeps upon the bare ground, is still at ease and satisfied. Someone who is discontented, even if he were ensconced in a celestial palace, would still not find this tallying with his ideas and tastes. The one who is discontented, though rich, is poor. The person who is contented, though poor, is rich. The one who is discontented always does what his 5 desires latch onto. It does that which causes grief to and arouses the compassionate pity of one who is contented. This is what I mean by the term contentment. So that's what the Buddha has to say. Knowing what is enough is contentment. A monk we know used to have a mantra he would say to himself when he was tempted to buy something he didn't really need. I have enough already. And I find this quite helpful. When we're cruising the internet for the thing we've latched onto, you know how sometimes we think, oh, I'd really like to have this thing, we might bear this in mind. I have enough already. I don't really need that thing. And it kind of, sometimes it falls to the ground. Sometimes it's good to have the thing. It's fine. But it just puts us in perspective. This little mantra, I have enough already. Excuse me. Well, as we know, our whole society seems to be geared to feeding that craving that we're all prone to. Buy this, get this, do this, watch this, Social media, the Facebook thing of amass all sorts of friends who've never met us and don't have to live with us. It's all pretty empty, actually, as we know. And then there's contentment with our life. Some of us have rather high expectations of life. We should be happy. And if we're not happy, there's something wrong, either with us or with our circumstances. I should be happy. What's wrong, Well, life isn't always like that. Life often isn't happy, as we know. It's all right. As they say, expectations are the prelude to disappointment. Life rarely lives up to our expectations if we're expecting to be happy and have everything work out our way. Koho Zenji, Reverend Master Jiyu's teacher, said to her, at first, don't expect too much. And later, don't expect anything. Well, this can sound a bit pessimistic, but actually it's really good advice. The fewer expectations we have, the more content we can be with whatever comes our way. I find it so helpful to remember that. Don't expect too much, and then don't expect anything. Don't expect gratitude, don't expect to have a peaceful life, don't expect everything to go our way. It's not going to happen, probably. But we can practice contentment. We can simplify our life a bit. Maybe we don't have to do so much. or to take on so many things, to have so much and to want so much. Maybe we can just simplify a bit. Just kind of think, I have enough already. Or do I need to do this extra thing? Do I really have to put this burden on myself to do this thing that I'm sure would be fun, but actually it's really hard and I don't think I can really do it, or it's just, too much pressure. People who live more simply than some of us do, that I do actually, are usually more content than those of us who are constantly doing something or striving for something, wanting something more. We all know what that's like. Just kind of burdening ourselves with stuff and things and projects and so on. Maybe we can put some of them down. Expectations of other people. Most of us are not perfect. And other people don't always behave in the ways we'd like them to. Can we accept them the way they are? And be grateful for their presence in our life? Our family members who may be annoying us quite often, would you really not want them here, even with all their faults and so forth? We might want them to be different, but we can't really change another person. We can only change ourselves, change our attitude. This is much better than trying to change another person. To see the good qualities in others and be grateful for them if we can, not just to see the things that annoy us. Gratitude, closely related to contentment. If we're ungrateful and complaining about everything, we're not content. If we feel that life has cheated us, or we've had a poor start or something, or haven't had a fair chance, we can't be content. And if we can be grateful for what we have, we can be content. It's very close, Gratitude and contentment are really very similar. Many of the Buddhist virtues, actually, as we call them, all relate to each other. Well, here in this country we have a lot more comfort, a lot more stuff, a lot more freedom, a lot more of everything than people have in many other parts of the world. But it doesn't mean we're content, as I said. And can we really be content when we think about the rest of the world, when there's so much suffering everywhere, so many people at war and suffering under horrible circumstances? We're all deeply connected. How can we be content if we know that's going on? Well, we can't always be dwelling on the suffering in the world. We just make ourselves miserable, and it doesn't really help. We need to take it deeper. We need to find a deeper refuge. And this is what the Buddha did. He saw sickness, old age, and death, suffering, and he resolved to do something about it. He knew he couldn't stop people getting old and sick and dying. It's just the way life is. But he wanted to find the truth of things, to find something beyond suffering. What is that beyond? There must be something beyond this suffering. Life can't just be, life is hard and then you die. There must be more to it than that. And when he did find the truth, he could be content. But he didn't just stop there. He didn't just abandon the rest of the world and be happy. He was tempted, but he didn't. He did his very best to help people. Right to the end of his days, as I said, the scripture of the Buddha's last teachings, on his deathbed, he's teaching people how to be content. To be content with the things you would like to have different. How about our own training and our meditation practice? If we're longing for enlightenment and spiritual experiences, well, it can be a motivation to get us started, but it doesn't carry us very far. It doesn't sustain us, because most of our daily practice and training is not about spiritual experiences. It's about washing the dishes and doing the next thing and keeping our temper and paying attention and coming back to this present moment. Coming back to this present moment. Mindfulness is a practice of contentment. When we're just here, present, in this very moment, there can be an underlying contentment. This is it. This is my life. This is what I have right now. I don't need to be looking for something else. For better or worse, this is it. And there can be a kind of a peace of heart, an underlying contentment. The things we might be worried about are probably not going to happen. At least not happening at this very moment. The sky, the ceiling is not falling in, although it may need repair. World War III has not happened yet, And if these things do happen, if the things we worry about are happening, well, we just deal with them. And we can find stillness in the midst of it. Our regrets of the past, well, the past is gone, as in the immortal words of Kung Fu Panda's mentor, Wu-Gui. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. However, as I looked it up this morning, I found that this was Eleanor Roosevelt who first said this, and I was a bit disappointed. I hoped it was Wu-Gui, but anyway, it was Eleanor Roosevelt. It's all right, I can live with it. I can be content. Mindfulness, as I said, a practice of contentment. I remember there used to be a popular bumper sticker. I'd rather be sailing or golfing or doing something else, whatever it was. And Reverend Master Jiyu used to say, I don't want to be driving behind somebody who'd rather be doing something else. He's probably not paying attention. To be here in this moment and to be content with that. If we're stuck in traffic, do we need to be impatient and anxious, just trying to get on to the next thing? Or can we just sit there and accept it? And just consider, here I am. I kind of like this. With all these other cars, all these other people, all trying to get somewhere, all stuck in the traffic jam or whatever it is, together. We're all just one being, together. It's like little blood corpuscles going up a vein or something. We're not actually separate. We might think we are, but we're all in the same boat. Even though it might look like different boats, we're actually all in the same situation. And it's always like this. Actually, life is always like this. We're always pretty much like everybody else, more or less, and we're all connected, deeply connected. Accepting our situation, because contentment is mostly acceptance. But it also has the flavor of being at ease. Even in this uncertain world, impermanence is always with us. Things happen that we weren't expecting, sometimes very unwelcome. We can get flung about by circumstances that we can't control. How do we practice contentment within all of this? Well, we just had the ceremony for great Master Dogen, who brought Soto Zen from China back to Japan. And there he is, in this lovely picture painted by Reverend Master Morgan, riding the dragon. The dragon is kind of flying up and down in the wind. Dogen's Kesa is flying in the wind, and yet is completely still, calm, peaceful, and is looking down with great compassion at the world. I just love it. In the midst of all this turmoil of life, up and down, he's completely still, practicing stillness and contentment. Well, Dogen had a lot of trouble in his life. He had a lot of ups and downs with the dragon. When he was young, he became a monk very young. He couldn't find a teacher who could really help him, so he went to China, which is a very difficult and dangerous journey in those days. In some little boat, you could easily die on the route. Then he found his teacher in China, realized the truth, and came back to Japan. Again, a very difficult and dangerous journey. And there's a story about him. There's a terrible storm, and the boat's about to sink, just a little boat. And he has a vision of Kanzeon, Avalokiteshvara, sitting calm and still on a little lotus petal. And they pray to, I think they all see it actually, they pray to Kanzeon for help. And the storm subsides, they survive, they get back to China, back to Japan. This is a lovely story. Just Dogen, this great intellectual and wonderful, deeply wise monk, has this vision, a simple vision of Avalokiteshvara to whom he was devoted for the rest of his life. Well, he's back in Japan and his troubles are not over. He had enemies who tried to ruin him because he was becoming popular. He had to keep moving his monastery to other places. Finally, he left the city, went into the mountains, and founded Eheji, his temple, which is still, of course, one of the few temples of Soto Zen in Japan, dedicated to Dogen. And he probably had all kinds of troubles in his various communities because people are people everywhere, no matter who they are. And he got cancer, and he died at the age of 53, really young, Must have been very painful. They didn't know what was wrong with him because they didn't know it was cancer in those days. They kept trying to heal him, go to various doctors. Finally, they persuaded him to leave the temple and go to find a doctor in the city. He didn't really want to go, but he went. And so he was staying with a lay disciple, and he died. So life was not easy for great Master Dogen. However, throughout his years in Japan, he wrote a lot of things, did a lot of teaching, and he wrote the Shobogenzo, which is his master work, an enormous work with 96, there's some that they say more than that, chapters. A wonderful text, and one of its main themes is that Buddha nature permeates everything and everyone, people, other sentient beings, plants, walls, tiles, bricks and stones, as he says. Everything, nothing left out, absolutely certain. He says this over and over and over again, completely sure of it. And this is what allowed him to ride the dragon. That's how he remained still in the midst of all conditions, because he knew the Buddha nature permeates everything and everybody, even us. And that's how we ride the dragon, by coming back to stillness and faith in the midst of all the conditions of our lives, sitting still no matter what's going on, not letting them pull us off the dragon, entrusting ourselves to the Buddha nature, unborn, the great matter for which we train, however we think of it, however you'd like to call it. Call it God if you like. Whatever it is that sustains us, that whatever you want to call it, that which we come back to, that to which we entrust ourselves over and over and over again. No matter what happens, entrusting ourselves to it completely and with compassion, like Dogen. Not cutting ourselves off, saying, well, I'm okay, because you can't. We're all part of Buddha nature. None of us are separate. You can't say, well, I'm okay. I don't care about anybody else, because we're all so deeply connected. And the more we can sit still, and the more we can practice faith, the more that becomes apparent to us that nothing is separate, no one is separate. Even we are part of it. And this is how we practice contentment. And this is Great Master Dogen's teaching for us today. And that's our talk. Thank you. It's nice to see you all.